But we're ready to start now, and I'd like to welcome you this morning, and good morning to everybody. Hooray, thank you. I'm Jude England. I'm Head of Research Engagement here at the British Library, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to today's conference. I think this is a topic which seems particularly resonant at the moment, or is, it doesn't even seem, it is particularly resonant when we look at recent headlines around the phenomenon of longer lives. Recently published statistics drew attention to the longevity divide, for example, where babies born in Glasgow have the lowest life expectancy of the UK. Baby boys, for example, are expected to live till 72 and a half, compared to almost 80 for the UK as a whole. And if you're lucky enough to live in East Dorset, you keep going till 83 on average. But these figures also disguise the fact that a quarter of the boys born in Glasgow won't reach their 65th birthday. I think it's about 15% of girls. An age which, from my perspective, as somebody who's celebrating my 60th birthday this year, hooray, seems astonishingly young. But both my parents were dead before their 65th birthdays, although they were born in the late 1920s and they didn't reach their expected lifespan, which at the time was around 70. So I come from a family that's not particularly long-lived, and I don't know how long I'll keep going. So there's that thing about something they say about gardening. You have to garden as if you're going to live forever, but live as if you're going to die tomorrow. But I think our growing older population is more often than not portrayed as a problem. Recent headlines about the crisis in social care sum up this perspective, where costs and the need for provision have both risen rapidly over the last few years. And these are also accompanied by headlines about the pension crisis and the changes in age for receipt of the state pension and occupational pensions. And this is something that has particular resonance for me. Those of you who were born in a cohort in this room in the 1954-55 will know that we've all been lumbered with another 12 months to wait for our state pension, and we already had to wait till we were 64. So that equalisation, I think I'm now 65 and a half before I get my state pension, which I did expect to receive in August. But one statistic also highlights the change, which is the number of people living in the UK who are aged 100. And this is increased by an astonishing 73% in the 10 years since 2002. It was 7,740 in 2002. It's now 13,350. And there's no doubt this presents challenges to our society, but there's always a different light to be shown. Exemplified, some of you may have seen the story of Dolly Saville recently. And Dolly lives in the village I live in Buckinghamshire, which is called Wendover, and she celebrated her 100th birthday over the Easter weekend. And she's much feted in the village, but also more widely as the oldest barmaid in the world, not just in the UK, but in the world, because she still does 3 shifts a week in the Red Lion pub and has been working there for 76 years. Now, and has no intention of giving up. She says that working keeps her young and that she'd work more if they'd only give her the shifts. So her view sort of contrasts with the other perspective on retirement, where couples travel often, they're always on a cruise in my mind, into the sun, sort of glowing sun. And I suspect the truth for most of us is actually somewhere between the two. So on to today. So what we wanted to do with today's conference was look at the way that aging are not just biological events, but also social and cultural constructions. As we said in the outline to the conference, the ways in which individuals and the societies they live in construe and portray aging are fascinating, not only from a theoretical point of view, but also for how we understand and respond to an ageing population. And I think we've got a fantastic programme today to facilitate that debate, bringing together experts from different backgrounds to share and discuss from a variety of theoretical and practical viewpoints the many ways in which age and ageing are understood. So we'll explore how insights from research get translated into policy and practice, and also bring together some interdisciplinary thinking. And my introduction wouldn't be complete without a bit of a plug for the British Library, which actually will be 50 in 2023, although we come, of course, from an institution, the British Museum, which is 250. So we know a lot about age, and we have a lot of respect for age here. But we have content ranging from research-level journals and monographs to oral history collections, such as the Millennium Memory Bank, which interviewed people from 7 to 104, so a huge range of ages and about 6,000 interviews. And we also have our newest resource, which is the newsroom, which enables access to our newspaper and magazine collections. As the Colindale Newspaper Library, those of you who used it may know, is now closed down. But we have on site now access to digital and microfilm newspapers while we're still moving all the newspapers into their new home. But interestingly, we have broadcast news service, which records and delivers access to television and news programmes from 22 channels that are free to air in the UK. And we started recording those on the 6th of May 2010. And in fact, they'll be quite interesting, I think, as a kind of a growing resource, which will show how the cultural approaches change. And we range from BBC to Al Jazeera and Russia Today in the news that we collect. We're also involved in something called the Closer programme, which is the Cohort and Longitudinal Studies Enhancement Resource, which brings together 9 of the UK's longitudinal cohort studies. So these are studies that follow people from birth throughout their lives. The oldest one is the Hertfordshire cohort study, where they're following people born in the 1930s. National Survey for Health and Development, that the cohort are about 66 now. So they're providing a fantastic resource on ageing. So our speakers will cover today topics from finances to dress and consumption, dementia, arts and photography, and public policy. And I'm so pleased that we've been organised the conference in cooperation with the Centre for the Policy of Ageing and the School of Languages, Linguistics and Film at Queen Mary University. And to the team here, Simone, who's sat over here, Jenny Grimshaw, Jill Ridgely, and Robert Davies, who've put together the conference and worked very hard on getting it all together. And we're grateful as well to staff and students from Queen Mary for their assistance. And we've got a display of artworks, collages, pictures and portraits in the foyer and the Chaucer room. And that's from the project Photographing Everyday Life, Ageing Bodies, Time and Space project from Brunel University with Wendy Martin and Katie Pilcher, who'll talk about that later on today. And portraits from Fiona Carlisle, who's a portrait artist, but also currently a Knowledge Exchange Fellow at the University of Edinburgh Centre for Cognitive Ageing and Cognitive Epidemiology. And she's here today and will be around to talk to people with the Centre's Knowledge Exchange officers called Robin Morton. So they'll be around during the breaks. But it's also now my real pleasure and delight to introduce Lynn Siegel, who's our first speaker. Lynn is Anniversary Professor of Psychology and Gender Studies at Birkbeck, University of London. She worked at Middlesex University before that. And her teaching and research interests began with introducing feminist thought, psychoanalytic reflection, social and cultural location into a critique of mainstream university. And she's been involved in setting up, I think, a unique department at Birkbeck, certainly one of the forerunners on psychosocial studies. And her major publications have been in the area of feminist theory and politics, shifting understandings of femininity, masculinity and sexuality, and then more recent work on memory, social conflict, and the psychic paradoxes of ageing. And to this end, her most recent publication is Out of Time, the Pleasures and Perils of Ageing, which is published by Verso. And although we haven't got the leaflets today, if you check the Verso website, there's 40% off the book and free postage and packing at the moment. But I also think some of a certain age will also be delighted to see that last year there was an updated and revised edition of Beyond the Fragments, which is a early work on feminism. But Lynn's going to talk to us today about the perils and pleasures of ageing, and I'm delighted to welcome her to open our conference, which I'll do in 1 second because I nearly forgot the housekeeping. There's no fire alarm, and the loos at either side of the stairs, and there's lunch provided and tea break later on. And Simone and the other library staff will make sure if there's a fire, you get out. Well, I hope anyway. But I'm sorry, now I'm going to now say properly. So let's welcome Lynn to our conference and get us underway.